Reality is our friend. Like any belief, the structure of the belief organizes attention and intention, which converges with the attention and intention that chooses a specific belief among all of the various beliefs that each contain some truth, to create a reality and an experience of reality that is among the more graceful, among the more intelligent experiences of reality available. Now, the belief reality is our friend takes a little bit of skill. It definitely requires intelligence in the form of complex perception to navigate and understand all the various ways that reality is trying to help us to realize our greatest goal, to become a distinct, independent energy pattern that functions consciously at a high level of sustainable fun. If you follow all the various mathematical trajectories going on in reality, you see that pain leads to consciousness, consciousness leads to competency, competency leads to success, success evolves on a continuum towards the innate human drive towards sustainable well-being. Conscious sustainable fun is at the high level, at the highest levels of sustainable well-being. It all ends up towards conscious, sustainable fun. And in order to be conscious, there has to be distinction. There has to be consciousness created by language, which means that the framework of identity has to be independent. The organic, integrative form of identity, of all that is unconscious in human terms because there's no distinction. It's all one. And something as vast and complex as the multiverse, as reality, all being one, is unconscious. It doesn't become conscious until we break it into bits with words and then zoom in on little pieces of it that we can process with the RAM in the human brain. RAM, a computer term, in order to create reality. So let's start exploring this belief. How is it that all of reality is our friend on this journey towards conscious, sustainable well-being? Well, it starts off with the trauma of individuality. Trauma alerts us, imperfections alert us to the fact that we are distinct. Fear and pain alert us to the need to understand patterns, to cut the world into more and more bits, and in doing so, creates human consciousness. Human consciousness is our friend because it leads through the rational brain to pattern recognition. And pattern recognition is our friend because it allows us to predict the future with more and more accuracy. The ability to predict the future with more and more accuracy leads to our ability to create more sustainable well-being. That's what we do with future knowledge, with less and less energy. In other words, to become more intelligent. Now, when we encounter an enemy, someone that is moving towards an agenda that is counter to our agenda, it challenges us to compete. The Latin underpinning of compete, to draw out the best in the opponent, is then a competition for competency, because the most competent the most competent person wins. If you define competency broadly, luck, one form of competency. Being well placed in an ecology through a family or bit of infrastructure is a certain form of competency. Being fast, another form of competency. Being smart, another form of competency. Having good memory, another form of competency that allows us to project and predict the future. In other words, the most competent person in a competition wins, by definition. Therefore, the stress, the struggle, the desire to win, the muscle of competition develops more competency in both people and leads to one winning. There is a growth in competency. Now, the loser in most cases experiences heightened degrees of pain. At a certain point, heightened degrees of pain becomes heightened degrees of fear of pain. Fear of pain leads to strategy to avoid pain, which requires more awareness, more competency. More awareness, more competency leads to success. And every person, as they explore success, gradually moves towards the recipe of success that supports sustainable well-being. Our cult, for example, tells us that to be happy, we need to have money. To be happy, we need to have an education so that we can make money. We get an education, we make money, and we discover it's an incomplete recipe. Our cult lied to us. We're not happy. Well, the imperfections, the lies of the cult lead to the birth or transcendence beyond the cult. So an imperfect cult leads to betrayal. Betrayal leads to pain and disloyalty. As we relinquish our loyalty to the cult, we have to find a new deity. Before, the deity was the cult, trying to be normal. But when normal doesn't deliver on its promise of sustainable well-being, we must go into the unknown. But if normal is too comfortable, we won't be born outside the cult. The cult must be ruthless enough that we insist on facing our fear of the unknown and go out there, where 99% of all reality is. The unknown is vastly bigger than the known. Out there is vastly bigger than the cult. It is a form of birth. If it's too comfortable in the womb, if there's an endless amount of space in our mother's belly, we never come out. If the cult is too accommodating and does not betray us, we never transcend it. So the very thing that is so infuriating, so outrageous, so unbalanced, and so unfair is the very thing that helps us move out of the womb into a more cold and uncomfortable reality, which leads to rapid consciousness of that reality, which leads to increased competency and success in a bigger reality. First, we were born from the possibility field into the probability field into our mother's womb. Then we were born into the cult or culture. And if we have the good fortune of being betrayed, of being harmed, traumatized in some way by the cult, we will be born as a distinct identity outside the cult, becoming not just a grown-up within the cult, but an adult, independent of the cult, with our own version, our own rules. And so the enemy becomes the friend. The enemy becomes the teacher. The enemy is more of a friend than the friend is. The discomfort ultimately leads to more growth, more development, to being born, more than the comfort. So discomfort becomes our friend. Polarity and adversarial becomes a teacher. The discrepancy between the inner world and the outer world challenges us to grow. If I close my eyes and think of the most beautiful and perfect scenario and open it and it is there, with no effort, with no learning, then I do not need to become anything in order to achieve my agenda. There's no sense of fulfillment. There can be boredom. There can be meaninglessness. It's too efficient with no development. So the gap between where I want to be and where I am is like the weights in a gym that develop muscle. The pain is my friend. The insult, the humiliation, the injustice becomes the fuel to right the wrong, to understand the system, succeed in the system, and also in the process understand that the system is not the ultimate deity, that the system is flawed. If there is no flaw, there is no development. If there is no development, there is no distinction. Life is in the business of iterating and experimenting to create unique, sustainable patterns of energy that want to exist and that reality wants to support in its existence, which leads inexorably towards conscious, sustainable fun. Because most deities, freedom is more fun than no freedom. Pleasure is more fun than pain. Success is more fun than failure. It's all moving towards conscious, sustainable fun. There's no other way to win the game. And the further we descend into Hades' realm, the dark imbalance, the asymmetrical, the density of helpless, endless, horrible trauma, the more we learn the laws, the more motivated we are to accelerate, to differentiate and accelerate the journey towards conscious, sustainable fun on our own terms. Every child listens to their parents until listening to their parents causes too much pain, to stay loyal to the deity. Every citizen listens to their cult until the cult betrays too many promises and is too expensive to remain loyal to. And yet the cult is also our friend, not only evicting us with betrayal, but keeping us alive to a point capable of surviving our rebellion. A family system keeps us alive enough to rebel against the parents as the fractal representation of the cult power structure. Without that rebellion, there can be no new life, no new pattern of energy, no antithesis leading to synthesis. One must rebel before you can create something new. One must destroy and burn the boats on the beach before you can find a new land, a new structure. Everything in our reality, from the meanness to data to technology, is pushing us, is challenging us to iterate, to survive, to feel enough security in that survival, to feel safe, to rebel. And in the vastness of the unknown created by that rebellion, to give birth to something new. And among the many creations, among the many experiments and iterations of something new, new patterns of energy, some of them will live and some of them will die. A dandelion puts out 1,000 seeds. All it needs is 2% to take hold. And a dozen more dandelions exist than before the wind carried the seeds chaotically out into the ecology. Some will land on asphalt and die. Others will land in the ocean and die. Others will be eaten by birds and die. Others will fall on bare soil. Others will begin to grow and be stepped on. But that little bit, that 2 to 3% success rate out of 1,000 seeds allows the species of dandelions to not only continue, but to iterate and acclimatize to the environment in competition with everything else in existence. Just as our own creative aspirations and all our thousands of possible thoughts, most will fall on the pavement. Most will be dead in another 10 years. But amongst those thousands, a few will lead to the evolution of civilization, to the evolution of life. And as we surrender to our role in iterating what is, as we move instinctively towards conscious, sustainable fun, we feel the greatest joy of all, to be used by life, to be used by the giant code of evolution, to allow through us something greater than us, a third energy, to be born in the dance between sympathy, antipathy, and synthesis. inside and out, as life moves on, endlessly, into the abyss of the unknown, into the abyss and the open arms of the future. Becoming something that in 1 billion years we cannot begin to imagine, but plant as a seed today. It is our greatest joy to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And all of us are. Hi, I'm Dane Rose. All knowledge begins with a paradigm, and out of that paradigm comes an idea, an awareness that we adopt, reject, or synthesize into something better. It doesn't become wisdom, it doesn't become useful until we take action, until we integrate it into not only our thoughts, but our feelings, our body, our words, and our way of being. For that to occur, we have to move from the passive media paradigm into more active engagement. In the link below, in the More Information section, is an invitation to join a very small, deliberately filtered, high-quality discussion with a group of people who share a common language and want to work with these ideas, with me and with one another, with the sole goal of creating 10 times more sustainable well-being for ourselves and those around us per unit of energy invested. Thank you for watching.